Hey team, it's Rob Compton, and we're here today to talk about baking projections, which is one of the keys to managing your food costs. So, when you think about a baking projection, let's just take a look at it and figure out what it is and what all it says to us. So, one thing at the very top, of course, is your store number, the week ending date that you need to have. Then, in the very center, it tells you the daily sales and how many trays you'll need for that amount of sales. Again, that's just total bake sales there. And then on the right hand side, you'll see where it gives you the information of how much 7 day cookies is a half tray, and 13 to 15 is considered a full tray. And then you come on down, sales across the top line. That's total sales across the top highlighted section there. The dark highlighted section is your each and multiples, which you'll get from your baking projection report, which I'll show you. The far left side is the percent of batter used. This is critically important. To make the spreadsheet your sheet, you got to make sure you update that information once a quarter. The sheet that you're downloading now is just a template. It's not your store. So that tells you when you do that what percent of batter each cookie is, and that way you're scooping the appropriate amount of batter per cookie. And then across you have your need, and your need is again based upon your cells. So when you enter in your cells in the highlighted section, the dark highlighted section, that'll auto populate what you need is. And your on hand is what's fresh, what's within shelf life. That's critical. What's within shelf life. That includes everything that in your Merlin or on your displays, you've already put them out. So just make sure that, again, all cookies have a 24-hour shelf life except for the chewy chocolate and chewy pecan. So make sure they are fresh. And at that point, you set it up. You get your bake one in, and so you just do the math. How much do I need minus how much I have on hand? And that's my bake, which I'll show you examples as we go through. But a couple things just to point out again, bake one is again the current bake you're on. Bake two can immediately follow or can follow throughout the day. Then bake three is the same thing. It's ongoing bake as you're doing throughout the day. Then the bottom also has again place for your colossal, your brownies, and your cakes. This is just a great way to have one communication tool for everybody. So, how many brownies do you need? How many cakes do you need rolled for each day? And you see a par there for cakes. That's just maintaining a par at each store. Stores will be different, but let's just say you had a 25-16 par. Well, if I go back and I count, and I have 10, well, I need to roll 15 to get me back up to the 25. So that's why a par is very helpful. So people know how many cakes to roll to maintain a par throughout the week to make sure you're never running out. Now, as I said before, this is the most important part of the bake projection itself. This is what makes it yours. So this is the part that's so important. So you're going to take your last 4 weeks of your week ending once a quarter. Last 4 weeks of your week ending and enter your usage in here. And this again will enable the sheet to be your sheet and dialed into your cookies. And once a quarter, that's why we say as things come and go, your employees come and go, we'll see some changes in your product mix. But as long as you're doing this once a quarter, it'll help you make sure that you have the right product mix out there. And again, all of this is really important. But if we're not using scales, we're not following procedures, our food cost is still going to be whacked, right? So this is the way to protect it, to make sure we're using scales, make sure we're weighing our cookies correct, and make sure our M&Ms are being proportioned correctly, and all those things that we need to do to maintain proper food cost. So how do you do a baking projection? Well, step one, projecting sales. Very important we do project sales correctly, and we'll talk about that. Get last year's sales information, and of course, get last year's baking results. And then complete the projection, and then monitor results every day. Just because you're using a bake projection doesn't mean you need to can let it go. As sales go up and down, you need to make sure you're adjusting what you're telling your team to bake to maintain proper food cost. So projecting sales. So you just go into NCR console, go to key indicators under reports, and then so from there you get your report. The key indicator report here, as you see, you'll set it up for a month, and that way you've got a month's worth of data to make sure that you're doing it properly. So I'm using Cordova Mall as an example, and so they're up 7%, doing a great job of 7%. Their multiples, as you can see, are at 75%. They're doing well there too as well. So that's just going to make sure we have enough cookies. So I'm going to get last year's sales information. Now I know they're up 7%. That's important. So I'm going to go to reports and daily summary and pull that report. I'm going to go to more options. That's going to allow me to set it up for the entire week and get all my sales for last year. So there's my net sales. So I have my net sales for last year, the week that I'm projecting, right? So now I'm going to take those numbers, right, and times them by 7%. And this way I know, again, this way I know that I'm projecting sales the right way. Now, why is this so important? One is, again, if I don't project sales well, I'm not going to have enough cookies. I'm up 7%. So if I just use last year's information, I'm 7% every day less than the cookies I should have, right? So I'll be scooping more, whatever else, and people will be thinking the baking projection doesn't work. Well, that's not the case. It worked. It's just not set up properly. So that's why you use the 4-week trend. That's why you use a key indicator report to make sure you're giving yourselves enough cookies, right? But same time, if his business starts to slow down, you need to slow your production down. Business is busy. I need to increase my production. So that helps you make sure you're on the right way. The baking projection report itself, again, found in NCR console. And so it's found under reports and GAC reports. And you get here, and you'll see it at the top left there. Baking projections report is where it's at. And then you'll change your dates right there, change your dates, and that way you can do it. And now one thing to know, this is not set up on our week ending, this is not set up in the computer. The dates aren't lined up. So you need to run 2 reports to get the data that you need. So as you see me here starting on the 20th, on the Wednesday, because I started the new week, I've changed the year, right? So that way I'm getting my information. So now I have my Wednesday through Saturday sales. And notice that, again, I'm going to the far right to my total, not my cookies, not your regular cookies. And multiple is your multiples. And so, again, to get your total there that you need. And again, I'm going to run another report to get it. Now, you see up there in red where it has change. That's where you can change the date. And so that way you don't have to go back every time. So just all I did there was see it's in blue here. Then I changed it, right? And then I've got the new results there. So easy to stay within the system and get done what you need to get done. So again, I'm going to take those numbers, I'm going to time those by 7% as well, so you can see what my new totals are. So again, I'm planning for business, I'm being smart, I'm being proactive, and I'm ready to go. And then you just enter the information in that you have across the board there. And again, you see that it all auto populates into my need. And so that way it's already there. And then I would just take my on hands, right? And then my bake 1 and bake 2, bake 3. So something to think about too, like on a Saturday when you got to do 12 and a half trays, this is when you really use your bake 1 and bake 2, because you can't do 12 and a half trays at one time. So what you do there, you might do 5 or 6 in bake 1, and then in bake 2, you'll do 6 more. Or you might do 6 in bake 1, and you might do 2 or 3 in bake 2 and see how business goes, and that would be your bake 3. But just be careful with that approach because you don't want to get caught not having enough cookies. You got to make sure someone's on point and watching that as you go on Saturday. And what I always tell people, if someone pulls the last tray of any product, they should always say last tray. So you, as the manager, can make a decision, bake 1 more, 2 more, 3 more, 6 more. So it just helps the communication of the store, and it's fun for customers to hear it as well. So again, now we've got our information in here, ready to go. And here it is, again, in use, right? So 6 trays. I'm looking on that Wednesday. I needed 6 trays. I had 2, right? So I'm gonna do 4 out of the gate, and then I'm gonna do 2 a little later, depending on traffic. And I just kind of go on through, and you can see how it works. You can see again, I got my second bake, and on Thursday I had to do a third bake several times. So that's it. It's just a matter of being smart, being proactive, and making sure your team knows what's going on. And I would tell you this, one of the hints is that I would say is, on a busy day, or most of the time throughout the week, you should be in charge of the bake. You're telling people what to scoop when. Because when you're scooping, a couple things to keep in mind is you always start with what you don't have. Number one, you always start with what you don't have. And then number two, it's a matter of bake within times. So the cookies that are 12 and a half minutes, the birthday cake, the sugar, cook them together. And the ones that are 13 and a half, cook those together. The ones that are 14 and a half, cook those together. So that will help you turn your ovens right and keep you from opening, closing the doors, and doing things that interrupt the bake. So again, start with what you don't have, and then go to baking in times, and that will help you be very proficient at keeping cookies up and fresh. That's it. That's a baking projections. Hope y'all have a great day, and thank you.